Welcome back. Now that we've created a pipeline to process the other 6 files, let's now take a look at creating a pipeline to transform the trip data file, which is partitioned by year and month. This is the design we had followed to process this data, and now we need to create a pipeline for this. As you may remember, we hard-coded the year and month parameters to the call to the stored procedure. So if we had new data for a new month, it wouldn't work. So we want to fix that as well in the pipeline. There could be many different requirements to process this data. For example, the client may ask us to reprocess all of the partitions present in the raw folder. Every time the pipeline has run, we may be asked to process the data one for the partitions for which we don't have data in the silver layer, that is, new data arrived. Since the last load is processed for our pipeline, we are going to keep it simple and process all of the partitions every time. Having said that, once you have done this pipeline, you will be comfortable building pipeline for other scenarios. We'll take a look at that too. Let's now come up with the design for the pipeline we want to create. Our pipeline first needs to identify the partition year and month for which to process the data. We said we want to process data for all the partitions, immaterial whether the data is already present in the silver layer or not. There are 2 ways of doing this. One option is to get the partition year and month from the folder path. In the data link, we can use the activity get metadata for this. The other option is to use the script activity and run cycle against our views in the branch layer and get the distinct year and month from our data. This is what we are going to do in this pipeline. If you want to learn more about the get metadata activity, please refer to the Microsoft documentation, our specific course, Azure Data Factory. Once we get the list to partition year and month, we need to iterate over the list and process the data. Synapse pipelines provide an activity called for each activity, which gives us this ability for each iteration as we did before. We need the delete activity to delete the corresponding data in the silver layer if it already exists, and then execute the stored procedure to run the statement. We also need to ensure that we pass the partition year and month to this activity so that they process the right data. Once all of the partitions are processed, we need to create the view in our silver layer. We can use the script activity to do this. As you can see, this is slightly complicated than the other pipeline that we created, but it's not too bad. Let's switch over to Synapse Studio and get started with creating the pipeline.